This is Straight Talk with Atlanta Greg Fann, the preacher man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the preacher man.
Well, welcome to Straight Talk tonight with yours truly, Greg Fann, the preacher man, and Shanan E. Jones. Shannon's going to join us shortly, but right now we're going to go to Miss C, and we got special guests. We have Apostle Darrell Winston, and we have Leonard. He's going to be on from Hope Hostelers. We'll be back on the other side.
Oh, hi. Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast. Prayer is Powerful Breakfast will be held May 4th, 2024, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Vision Ministries Holiness Church, 659 Larkin Street in Atlanta. Contact Pastor Doris Colquitt for more information at 770-866-8225. Booker T. Washington High School, yay, invites you to its Centennial Breakfast. That's Saturday, April 20th, 2024, beginning at 9 a.m., doors open at 8 a.m. at the Georgia International Convention Center. Contact Reginald Starr for more information at 404-525-1215, or you can send him an email at rdstar, and that's star with 2 R's, at bellsouth.net. Alta Dementia Summit, the Role of the Black Church, will be presented April 25th through the 27th, 2024 at the House of Hope Atlanta in Decatur. To register or get more information, visit www.alterdementia.com. That's ALTERDEMENTIA.com. You'll see the register icon right at the top of the screen. Well, that's going to do it for Miss C. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Second segment of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the preacher man, and Shanan Jones. And we have our guest with us tonight, and Shannon's going to bring them on, and we're going to talk about the issue about gun control and gun violence. I know you are interested in gun control and gun violence and what's really going on in our world today, in our society, in our community. Shanan?
Well, listen, we have two great brothers with us tonight, Apostle Darrell Winston and Brother Lungy, who are in a collaboration right now entitled The Fierce Urgency of Now. But I want each of these men of God and these men of God's mandate today to bring about the plan of God in this world. I want each of these brothers to just quickly introduce themselves more thoroughly, and then we want to jump into Bishop Fann, the peace plan and the work that they are doing to really bring about substantive violent reduction in the metropolitan area, throughout the state of Georgia, and really throughout this country. So I'm going to begin. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm glad to have them on tonight on Straight Talk, and of course to our IGO listeners, and we'll put their information up so they can give you their name, their numbers, and so if you want to get in touch with them, please do, won't you? All right, Shanan.
All right, let's begin with Apostle Darrell Winston. If you will please tell our listening audience and our viewers who you are, and certainly we will let folks know how important you are to this cause and the work that we do.
You're muted.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. Thank you, Bishop Van. I am so happy to be on Around the World and to be a part of this conversation, especially in the wake of so many tragedies throughout this region as it relates to gun violence, specifically the growing impact that it's had on our community and our youth. And I'm happy to be a part of it because we have a high mandate to do something. And we know that the prophets in the land are pointing the way and we have already created a plan that I believe is going to be very key in bringing reduction and transformation. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. An important voice in the city throughout this metropolitan area, and one who literally stands in the gap, holding our community together with government and with the prophets, with clergy as well. Great leader. The next brother we want to talk to is we want to introduce tonight is Brother Leonard Dungy. Brother Leonard Dungy, tell us who you are, sir.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leonard Dungy, Executive Director of Hope Hustlers. Hope Hustlers is a boots on the ground community violence intervention program, and we deal with the highest risk youth um, and their families, and serve as a conduit for them to receive those necessary services that would help them thrive and and succeed in society. So it's a metropolitan wide. It's violence is a public health issue, and we address it as such.
Bishop Fann, when young folk are thrown out of the alternative education system, when they're thrown out of the alternative school, uh, that's when Brother Dungy and others that work with him grab them. Many of those young people are somewhere on the spectrum, impacted in some kind of way by gang activity, and it's the work that Brother Leonard Dungy's done many years with his mother and several others, Sister Gwen Sands, to grab these young people um, that have been put out of the alternative. So that's 3 times removed, and they grab them and put them back on a street called straight. So we're happy to have Brother Leonard Dungy and Apostle Winston with us on tonight. Let's have a discussion, Bishop. You got it.
All right, let's begin our discussion tonight. And what I want to do, Brother Dungy, I want to start with you first. I met you, and you may not recall this, but I met you at an event that the mayor had over in the Grady Home, the old Grady Home community. We were there, and there was some talk about gun violence and what we were going to do to eradicate gun violence, and people were there from Grady's and talking about those things and what have you. But you boots on the ground. You are boots on the ground. You have been doing it for a while. Let's talk about what you see and what the solution is, and then we'll go to Pastor Winston, and then we'll hear from him from a religious and a pastoral perspective. Yes, sir.
Um, well, first of all, one of the things when I said the highest risk, I mean those I did. We work with everyone, and no one's turned away, and that's just my mother, and me, and my legacy in that we don't turn anybody away, but we treat violence like a disease, and so we have to focus on those who are at the highest risk, not at risk, at the highest risk, and these are the youngsters, youth, and young adults who are at risk to shoot somebody or be shot today. And I think, when Pastor Jones, we were talking about it, it's not even a gang issue. And, that's not, that's just a spit in the barrel, for lack of a better term. But we want to, and that's what we do. And then we serve as a conduit. When we say violence is a public health issue, it's treated like a disease. There's 3 parts of treating a disease, and you have to interrupt the transmission, prevent the spread, and change group and social norms, what we just went through with COVID. But more importantly, people need food, water, clothing, and shelter and sleep. Violence, one of the main root causes of violence is poverty. And Atlanta just happens to be a city where the gap between the haves and the have-nots is widened, and the loss of the middle class per se in the city of Atlanta, and we also have to understand the dynamics of Atlanta. We were just talking about this earlier. Atlanta really the city only has a 500,000 residents. The other 6 million people, if it wasn't for those surrounding counties, there would be no metropolitan Atlanta. But we want to focus on those, and we do it through the school, we do it through the courts, and we do it just by being boots on the ground, street outreach, being known in particular areas in Metro Atlanta, but being credible and someone you can go to that's a police alternative. We're a sentencing alternative. And so again, we're trying to give you an opportunity, and not just that participant, but the entire family. It makes no sense for me to deal with a participant and work with him 4 to 6 hours a day and then send them back home to a toxic environment. And so what we have to do is we have to reach out to those highest risk individuals initially, and then surround them with support, love, some God, and then not only them, we have to extend that to their families and their peers. And so that's how gun violence, what we call community violence intervention, um, that's what it entails. And so it's a whole ecosystem. I'm boots on the ground, but then, the faith-based community, the hospital, schools, the courts, politicians, while, we need buy-in, this is not a political issue, it's a public health issue. So that's how we address it.
Can you give them the name of your organization and how they can get in touch with you?
Yes. Name of my organization is Hope Hustlers. Hope stands for healthy empowerment, healthy outreach and positive empowerment. And you can reach us at 1-833-936-HOPE, or at our website is hopehustlersatl.org.
Okay, and the reason I said that because a lot of parents, a lot of single mothers, they're raising boys. They need to be able to call someone like you when they see their kids going or their sons going straight, because you can grab them and help the parent as well as the children with your organization. Can you just give it one more time one more time so I can put it up on the screen?
Yes, 1-833-936-HOPE is the number, and our website is hopehustlersatl.org.
All right, all right. Let's talk to the preacher. Let's talk to Dr. Darrell Winston now. Dr. Winston, we're glad that you could join us tonight and just share with us what's going on with you and the faith community as it relates to what we're seeing in our community. You're an Atlanta. You're a true Atlanta. You're from Atlanta,
Yeah.
GA, the
Yes,
old
sir.
Atlanta. Yes, sir. Tell her what you're seeing and what you're feeling.
Well, for in the formative years of my ministry, I worked with adjudicated youth in Washington D.C. and was the senior counselor at a group home for delinquent girls. And so, as an advocate, going back and forth with the court system and seeing the various models in terms of uh, intervention, and that shaped my thinking as it relates to how important it is for the church to be involved and to have a presence beyond the benediction and whatever our community is dealing with. And I know that we're dealing with symptomatics, and even as Brother Leonard hit it, poverty at the root. Atlanta is a tale of two cities, and the gap between the haves and the have-not widening. We know also that in many instances, so many faith leaders, preachers, and across our community, we're burying our children, and we know that uh, many of us clergy are dealing with it's a battle fatigue, seeing our sons and daughters become casualties of this war. And I know the politicians seek to use various slogans to uh, galvanize the people and create with these what we call nice slogans. But in as much as you want to present the new Atlanta in a way that will be appealing to the world, the stark reality is that it is also a war zone, and our children are becoming casualties of war, and our seniors and people are afraid. And so, what I know then is that in response, last year and a half ago, when our babies were murdered on that 17th Street bridge, 12-year-old Zion, and then the 17-year-old, and to see how faith leaders came to me and Barris once and said, Doc, we got to do something. And we stood on that bridge, and it was not just preachers, it was community activists and leaders, and people heard the call and say, this can't happen in our city. And so that collective fed upness, if you will, being fed up to the highest of fed uptivity, I sought out to assess who was doing the work, realizing that many of us as faith leaders, we don't have the resources or in many instances the know-how to deal with the matters at hand. So I wanted to see and hear from organizations and Cure Violence Group that were doing the work. And overwhelmingly, the name Hope Hustlers was given to me. And Hope for Change, which is Brother Derek Townsend, and started hearing about the work they were doing. And my response to the faith leaders and preachers is we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to rally and get behind our sisters and brothers who are in the trenches 24/7 every day dealing with this and find our role and find a way to collaborate and create workable solutions so that, as Brother Leonard stated, so the God factor, we can bring in the spiritual power and make sure that we have a holistic thrust in addressing this matter. And it is now, as has been stated, been cast as a public health crisis. And I'll never forget a year and a half ago, young Dro had this forum. They asked me to come and do the opening prayer. And on the platform, on the panel, there was a mortician, Willie Watkins, Gary Davis, who's doing the work, and a few others. And the opening statement, Gary Davis said, how many of you have guns or weapons on you? And it was such a large amount of them raising their hands. And he said, I want to hear from y'all. He said, what's up with the guns? And they stood in line, and the line went from the front of the South Atlanta Cultural Center to the back. And to hear these young people say why, and overwhelmingly many of them said for protection. And I said, as I sat there, I said, this is going to be, it's going to take all of us, every facet of our society, preachers, politicians. It's going to take the business community because there is no way we can address this widespread thing. And as you know, as Brother Leonard said, it's just not a gang issue. But for so long we had these stigmas about it just being children in the so-called hood or the wrong side of the track, but to see you got even children and youth and young adults in the most affluent areas of the city still having access to guns. And so I know for us, this is a high mandate. We cannot, and I say this often, as pastors, as faith leaders, engage in a narrow, see no evil, hear no evil escapism, because they are bringing them like remember when Jesus came down from the mountain of transfiguration, and the whose son was sorely vexed, one version said, and said to Jesus, I brought him to your disciples, but they couldn't help. And and here we are in the 21st century. When Zion Child's mother said, she said, I called the police. I called everybody trying to get help for my son. And I asked the preachers, I said, did you ever hear her say she called the church? You never heard her say, I called the pastors, I called the imam. I said, that's an indictment, because we know that used to be a time when they would call the church first. And so I know without a doubt that we must roll up our sleeves and go to work, because we got to save our seed, and we got to save this generation and generations not yet born. And we got to do something.
Yes. I'm glad you said that in terms of the event that you guys had and you prayed. I have a nephew who may be in his 20s, and he was walking around with a gun. Every time I saw him, I said, "Why are you?" He said, for protection, just like what you said. It's protection, protection, huh? It's protection. I said, but you're really looking for a problem. When you walk around with a gun on, you're really looking for a problem. So I had to talk to him to help him educate. You don't need a gun. You don't need a gun everywhere you go. You don't need to have a weapon because you're branding that weapon. So that means that somebody's going to be scared of you because you got a gun, they got a gun. Next thing you know, yep, somebody's gotten hurt or somebody's gotten killed. So, I mean, but it's an education, and we all need to educate our loved ones and help them to understand you don't need a gun just because the government says it's all right to have a gun. You know, anybody can get a gun, but you don't need to have a gun. You need to be able to talk things out. You know, Darryl, you and I are from Atlanta. Shannon's from Atlanta. We fought, but we didn't carry guns. You know, we fought with one another. We had friends. We were best friends after we fought, right? But we had Miss So and So and Mr. So and So, and we fought in the street. Y'all take your tails home and stop all that fighting. You ain't have all that fight, but we don't have that community that's speaking to these young people, that's talking to these young people about what they're doing in terms of taking life and who else they're hurting when they take someone else's life, because you're just not hurting the person that you killed or you injured, you hurting their families. And so I thank you guys for what you're doing. And Shannon, I'm going to turn it back over to you at this point.
Yeah,
Shannon,
well, thank
are you
you.
still there? Okay. All right, go ahead on. I'm sorry.
Freezing up there?
Yeah, you good. You good now. You good. You were freezing.
I want to go back to something.
Yeah, you're freezing up. We can barely hear you.
Is that right? You can barely hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. I want to go to Leonard Dungy, and I want to talk about this need. I want to ask him if you could shape community. What is the one message that you say has the importance of where we need to be on the vanguard? Just an indictment. I think the bad thing, Apostle, is that we're so busy having church that we're no longer being the effective body of Christ in society. And we're not infected and affected with the gospel, and we're far too come side of the boat that actually making sanctuary the intersection of church. Leonard Dungy, what would be the message if you would say to really call the preachers out of the notion and back into the prophetic? Dr. King and several others place their bodies in the
Yeah.
several others. Get ready to talk about your mentor and the work that he was doing in Washington D.C. and how that impacted your life. And we got to move quick. I think we got about 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah. I think what has happened over time is that through politics and narrative, not just politics, but narrative as well, we have used fear. People want to quick fix the violence and reduce violence or to end gun violence. It didn't happen overnight. It's systemic, so it's not going to be solved overnight. But I think what happens is when we start to use fear as as a tactic to say, okay, people want a quick fix, but we got to hire more police. We got to put more police out there. Every time something happens, we need to have more police. And while the police are very important and public safety is very important, it hasn't worked. More police it doesn't work. We have a $790 million budget in the city of Atlanta. 1/3 of that goes to the police department, and people are still afraid to go outside. And so there's a disconnect there, but it also in the church, I think it has affected the church over time as well, because there's a disconnect with the youth of the day who are carrying guns for protection and auntie and granny. No matter what we did in the street back in the day, we still went to church. And that was a safe haven for us. because that's where our mama was. That's where our auntie and our granny and our grandfathers, that's where they were. That disconnect, I think, has happened over time because of the fact that we use fear. Because you can't say the city, I'm not going to say the city. Politicians can't say that crime is down, but people don't feel any safer in the community. It's got to be one or the other. You say homicide is down, well, homicides are down, but shootings and violent crime are up. And so I think, and it's not all the politicians' fault. It's just a narrative that, I think the system is systemic. And so the system has chosen that narrative of fear. And now when we say we're taking a public health approach, while God is obviously at the forefront of all of it, he sent us to bring them to church because they haven't been to church. They're probably 2 or 3 generations in a family for 2 or 3 generations that haven't been to church. It was normal for us back then. And that's another thing. And that's why we're saying we're missing God in the community. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did, and thank you so much for saying that, because that's just a true fact. The church is not in the lives of people. Shannon, I'm getting some feedback from your mic. I'm muting you because I'm getting some feedback. But the reality of it is that you're right, because people go to church, they won't bring the kids to church. They'll be in church, but they won't bring the kids to the church. And so kids don't have an understanding of a higher power, who God is, and what Jesus and Christ is, could be, and is in our lives. We were brought up in church, raised and made to go to church. I tell people my mother was a drug addict because she drugged me to Sunday school, she drugged me to BYF, she drugged me to Vacation Bible School, she drugged me to church. She made sure we knew Bible verses, and that we and even when we didn't want to sing, we had to sing. But I'm grateful for it now because of what she instilled in us, instilled in me as a child, right? You can't give a life, so don't take a life. That's not kill. Those values, those things were instilled in us. They don't get that now. So, but I want to thank both of you all for being with us today on Straight Talk. And of course, to our WIGO listeners, I will definitely make sure that the ones that's watching on YouTube, I'll have the information post, and hopefully you'll be able to capture the numbers and the websites and how to get in touch with them. I don't know if you gave your information, Pastor Winston, so I'm going to give you an opportunity before we sign off to give your information, and I'm going to bring you up by yourself, sir, so you can do just that. How about that? All right, hold on for a minute, Pastor Winston. Let me bring you right on up so you can give.
Thank you, Bishop. I can be reached at ADMIN, that's admin at dwinstonministries.com, ADMIN at dwinstonministries.com, or you can just go to Greater Works Ministries Facebook page, or Greater Works, Greater Works Ministries Facebook page or Instagram. You can reach me at all of those different on those various platforms. And I want to say as well, we need faith leaders who want to do something about the challenges that we're facing to get in touch with us, particularly as we roll out this peace initiative. We want faith leaders to know that we do have a workable solution. And many of you have been stating and lamenting the plight of our city as it relates to the youth. You can collaborate with us and plug in. We have an opportunity for you to do so. We're going to need all preachers, all faith leaders, and people of goodwill to join us in the work that is before us.
Shannon, I'm trying to bring you back in before we close out. And thank Pastor Winston, and thank
Thank
Brother
you.
Leonard for being a part of Straight Talk tonight. Pastor Jones, you own.
Well, I don't know. My arm, am I frozen? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you. We just can't see you, but we can see you, but we can. You're not moving. Oh, there you are.
So I certainly, we did not get a chance to talk about the peace plan, and that's really what's we really need to be able to unfold and talk about. So we got to bring these brothers back real soon to talk about the peace plan, the peace initiative that they have worked so tirelessly on, and that we're getting to roll out in the city.
All
Thank you
right,
very
man.
much for both of you for being able.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all. Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
this ain't nothing but straight talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the preacher man, and Shannon E. Jones. Take us out of here, Hal.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922 at Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.